these plans here about the method and then the cost of your lead generation. So you've got to think about how much is the marketing going to cost you. You're not only going to think about how you're developing the marketing plan, but you're going to think about the costs of the marketing. So what also is your prospect conversion rate? You know, how many people are you going to speak to, bump into, telephone, email, or whatever, before you get a single sale? So you've got to think about how we're going to get that. And those two will go together because you've got different conversion rates in different places that you sell. You know, if you can draw people into a shop and you get them more into your office and you get them face to face, you can work on them quite hard in terms of making the sale. But clearly, if they're remote to you, it's not cost you very much to email them a PDF brochure. But on the other hand, you haven't got the same way of engaging with them and working on them. So you'll probably get a lower conversion rate, but there again, you've hardly spent anything. So you've got to think about, in terms of developing a marketing plan, what do you expect to get as a conversion rate? And also, how long will it take? Because different things sell at different speeds. You know, I mean, and people can be different. You know, some people walk into a car showroom and want to come out that afternoon with a new car or a second-hand car or whatever. You know, some people just, they're not particularly choosy. You know, they just want a medium-sized car. It's not going to cost them too much. Bingo, they buy something. Other people may spend 6 months shopping around. You know, reading all the motor trade magazines, reading all the reviews, go around all the dealers looking at all the new ones, and then go around looking at the second-hand dealers and see, you know, what's the depreciation like, how tatty do they go, what sort of mileages are they clocking up. There's different models of car. When they're 2 years old, they've got enormously different mileages on them. If they're being sold into the, you know, into the marketing trade, if they're being driven around by salespeople or in the hire car market, they're going to clock up a lot more mileage than a car that appeals to little old ladies, where you're going to get 3 years old with 10,000 miles on the clock. So the type of car will differ. So some people will do all of that sort of basic research before they then choose and go and buy. So again, you need to understand how long will it take for that marketing plan to actually, for that marketing process to actually finish off, in order that you can think about the timetables that you're going to put into the marketing plan. So again, as part of that cost, you've got to think about what is the sales cost and what's your conversion rate. And of course, the sales cost equals essentially, you know, the lead cost calculated then against the conversion rate. So it's divided by the conversion rate. Some leads again will cost more. Internet versus person will cost a lot more. And again, where you are in the market will cost more. If you're selling rollers and Porsches or whatever, you've got to have a really upmarket showrooms, and you've got to have really smart people selling, and you've got to make them a really nice cup of coffee. But if you're selling Ford Fiestas, you can probably have far more cars in the showroom, and it doesn't matter if there's a broken ceiling tile as much, because people are coming in looking for a car that's much more competitive in its price range.
The other thing you need to look at is who the customer is, and get a clear picture of your customer. So I did a business plan or marketing plan for a theatre company, it was a dance company, and you would think that the market would have been the people who paid their seats to sit and watch them at Chapter or the Torch Theatre. The actual market was the 20 people who book theatre companies in theatres in South Wales and the West Country. So they actually only had 20 customers, because they had to sell it to those customers in the Torch Theatre. The Torch Theatre sells the idea of this dance company being in there. But your customers are actually the people that book it, not the punters that come and pay. And you need to look at who makes the decision. So again, the car analogy I'm talking about. Who is it that makes the decision about the car? In a couple, stereotypically, it would be the male doing that because they're interested in technology. You know, the classic thing is that the female decides on the colour rather than. But that's no longer necessarily true. That used to be true 20 years ago. It's no longer true because women have their own market, their own money to do it, and therefore there are different sorts of cars aimed at women or aimed at men. You know, the women may not want the GT stripes. You're probably an exception given what you were talking about, but. I'm being very stereotypical, but customers are stereotypical. And you have to have a picture in your mind of who the customer actually is. And it may not be the end user, it may be somebody else. Because somebody else makes the decision. So if you're selling the cars into the fleet market, it isn't the salesman who decides to buy Vauxhall Vectras, it's the fleet manager, and there are only 50 fleet managers with the clout to buy 500 cars each. And the fleet manager is the one you go to, and they're not interested in what it's like to drive or anything like that, except insofar that they don't want complaints from the salesman. They're interested in the mileage and how much the tyres cost and when the cam belt goes and all that sort of thing.
Just cost, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they want to measure depreciation, so they get their sales cost when they sell it on after 6 months, typically with a hire car, or maybe 2 years with a salesperson's car, against the running costs. And it's just a cost calculation for them.
But it's very different from looking at the actual end user. You may not have any decide where it is, and there may only be a few people deciding. I mean, in architectural, you're doing architectural drawing, you probably are only half a dozen architects in Pembrokeshire and another half dozen in Carmarthenshire. And that's your target market of doing it, not the general person who wants to buy a house, because they don't.
But even if you're selling to the public, the outlet you're selling through can make an enormous difference. I mean, I was watching Alex Polizzi last night on the chip shop in the 8. Did anybody see that?
Yeah.
Anybody watch
Yeah,
that?
that's good. I like that.
And there they were selling to the public, and she got 2 sample groups together, which was builders and people from the local gym.
All the fitness freaks, yeah.
Yeah. And the fitness freaks that she was selling to.
Well, they were doing salads in a fish and chip shop.
No, they wanted fish and chips. Because they come to a fish and chip shop, so they wanted fish and chips, and they had this whole range of baked potatoes, salads, and healthy options on the menu. Now, if they were buying food in the gym, there's a little cafe in the gym, they'd probably want the salads. But they come to a fish and chip shop. You know, they've already crossed that Rubicon to go for greasy, unhealthy food, and that's what they want. That's why they came there. They probably just come from the gym. They're tired, they're hot, sweaty. Packing in a few calories is really good. So that's what they wanted. So they were selling it to the general public who would buy other things, but because they were in a chip shop, fish and chips is what people wanted. So again, the methodology of how you're going to sell, what your outlets are, is going to make a big difference.
So can I just jump in?
Of course, please.
I take your point that sometimes there's only a certain number of direct customers, but actually in your marketing plan there might be a tier of different end users, and that's part of selling and marketing.
Yes.
So the theatre, I accept that there's only 20 direct customers,
Yes.
but there may be 2 or even 3 tiers below that are your end users, and in that sense they're customers.
Because if they can't sell your product on to their end,
If the product
they're not
itself,
going to buy from you the next time.
so if the product is not satisfactory or you can't provide some benefits for the next tiers, whether there's 1 or 2 end users.
Yeah, I mean,
So I take your point that there might only be some people who, the fleet manager is probably a very good example, because almost inevitably what they say goes, and there may only be 1 car that a rep can have, albeit sometimes in the bigger companies there might be a choice of cars, and you've then got different end users, but
Same with your hiring car, isn't it? You hire a car and you're going on holiday, and up comes the little pictures on the website, and you say, oh, I'll go for the Ford Fiesta, and you get a Fiat Punto. You have no choice, because it always says all equivalent. So it's whatever they've decided to get on the fleet is what you end up driving. And that's often one of the interesting things about hiring a car, because you get to drive something you've never driven before.
That's
It's
why
always
fashion keeps changing, isn't it? Because it's always about image.
Yes.
But you're quite right with the marketing. I mean, the Torch Theatre has its own marketing campaign, but you have to be such that you contribute to that marketing campaign. You provide pictures, you provide previous shows that have been done. But people in Torch Theatre will know the sort of thing that the people that go to Torch Theatre like. And this is, they don't want to see the same theatre company every week or every month. They want to see something different, so they want something which is slightly different to make you come along, but not so much that it puts you off from something else.
But it's a key factor in pricing.
Exactly.
Because in the end customer...
But again, in that sense, the pricing from the theatre company, they know they're charging 500 quid a performance. The Torch Theatre knows that they cannot charge more than 10 quid for a seat. So if it's 1,000 quid for the performance, they're not going to be able to make any money out of that, because there aren't enough seats. If they sell them all at 10 quid, the maximum price anybody in Milford Haven or South Pembrokeshire will pay to go into it. So you have to work out, you know, there's a price match there as well.
Yeah, again, take that point in that example, but in the sector I'm in, there's actually a whole range of different customers that are key in those pricing decisions.
And going back to the talks theatre, of course, you know, £10 is all that anyone will spend on a theatre ticket, and there's, let's say, 250 seats, I don't know, then that's £2,500, and they've got to take a slice of that, so they're never going to spend more than £1,000 or £1,500 on a performance. So if you're going to bring a 30-piece orchestra, you're all going to be very, very poor. So the cost of how you actually put that production on has to fit into that process. So that's why you end up with very small bands, very small cast lists on theatre productions.
And
That's
stand-up comedians are fine because there's only
Absolutely.
one sound, one way, one person.
Yeah, a couple of bob to the joke writer, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where the money is. Which is why stand-up is so popular with performers, because you can actually make money out of it. But you know, if you're 10-piece sort of miniature orchestra band, you're never going to make it big. You're never going to find places where there's no money. You've got to get into subsidy then, and again, you're into a different market. So those are the basic things you've got to think about in terms of costing. One of the things we need in a sales and marketing plan is we've got to think ahead. So it's got to be complete for the first 3 years of operation, and that's just, you know, that's a general minimum. But for a building like this, actually, you know, when you start thinking about how long it's going to take to fill, you'll find a 3-year plan actually isn't long enough. So you'll have to have a little bit of thinking forwards from 3 years. You may not have much detail there, but you've got to think a little bit more about how long it's going to go into the future, because you may not actually fill it. You've got to think about the value and number of the units. The target market segment you've already more or less chosen, but in a building like this, you don't want to go for different segments. There's different things that you can do with the building, and certainly, you know, if you look at a letting space, the workshop space is going to be different markets to the office type space inside the building, and then even meeting rooms like this, which is again probably a very different market. You've also got to think about the lead time and conversion rates. How long will it take to sell things? And clearly, you know, selling rooms by the day or by the hour, you want to get very quickly up into the market space as soon as you start marketing, whereas selling the other properties, some of them will take a long time. And also underlying that, and that's not really for the marketing plan, but for the business plan, we're not going to deal with here, but for the business plan that sits behind, then you've got to think about, you know, what are your break-even points? What's your financing? Can you actually survive that long? Because clearly, in your marketing plan, it's not going to be full of day one. Clearly, it's going to be losing money for quite a period of time. So when you're doing the business plan, which isn't part of this session, clearly that's got to go into it as well. And that will then affect your marketing plan. You may find your business plan says you've got to sell this stuff in 3 years, otherwise you've got bust. So then you've got to develop a marketing plan that will fit that timetable. So, we're on to thinking about the sales and marketing plan. So, you're at the stage now in the development of this building where the plans are finalised, the money's in place, and the construction is about to start. So you're trying to market this before they're actually starting breaking soil on the site. So that also has to go into how you're thinking about marketing. So now we're going to go into an exercise, paper and pencils, and just to remind you all.
There is paper and pencils on the tables and flip charts.
Put together some little notes and some bits of questions.